good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Whenever you get to see this podcast, we're so excited to be back. We took a few weeks of break, life happening, Mother's Day, different things going on, and we're like, okay, let's just take a little bit of rest and we get back to it. And today we are back with another amazing topic from the Singles Connect Community Podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. We're so happy you are back with us or you are joining us finally. But listen, we don't want you to just hop in and hop out. We want you to commit to us because we bring amazing content that definitely helps us grow wholesome, healthy relationships in our community. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn your notifications on, share this content with someone. But most importantly, before you leave us today, drop a comment below. Let us know what your thoughts are. What do you think? And is there anything weighing on your heart that you would like for us to discuss? Please let us know about it. Welcome, my beautiful co-host, Mr. Akan, beautiful Stacy. What's going on, y'all?
Hi. How, Dr. OJ? How are you doing? I'm Mr. Akan.
Chilling, chilling. Good to be here again. You know, let's
All
get it.
right, let's get it. Sorry about that, Akan. So, my people, today we're talking about deal breakers. Like, what are those things that if this shows up, I'm out of here. That's what I know deal breakers mean. So, for anyone listening to this, what deal breakers mean to one person might be different, but we are discussing it from a perspective of if something happens or if we identify certain traits or behavioral patterns or incidences that happen, and then it's like, okay, we cannot move forward in this situation that we find ourselves, or if the person has certain things going on in their lives. So let me get us started with that. What are some of my deal breakers? Some of my deal breakers. In fact, number one deal breaker is inconsistency. Like once I start seeing you flip floppy, like you don't know exactly what you want today, you're showing up tomorrow, you're not. For me, that is a major deal breaker for me. Like I just feel like I can't depend, I can't rely on you. So it's not. It won't just be something that I would consider with you. So I don't know what you guys think.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, Dr. OJ. So, I know you gave the definition too, but there is another definition is that it's issues that makes the relationship unsustainable and often leads to the end of the relationship. So it's like things that an individual or personal needs or universal, such as abuse, infidelity, different deal breakers for people are different. It depends on where you're from because so for some people, you just mentioned inconsistency. For some people, that's not a problem for them. For some people, even the infidelity is not an issue for them. For some people, a lot of things are not an issue for them. But whatever that issue is that you see that, okay, there's no way we can get past this, we can't work it out, there's no negotiation, there's no adjustments that can be made, there's no compromise, I'm out. This is your non-negotiable, if you want to call it that, and then you're just done. So I guess for me, I would also say to the inconsistency, like I can't deal with the emotional roller coaster of things, or the hot and the cold,
Mhm.
the wishy-washiness. There's a lot of different words to describe it, but I am big on the consistency. I like somebody too that shows appreciation. People that are famous quote, your yeses are your yeses, your nos are your nos. So like there's certain things that's the lack of respect, or the what do you call it, reciprocity too. So I have a long list of things. We can go on and on about my list, but I'm not going to bore y'all. But I have a long list of things that are deal breakers for me, especially in the beginning stage, where to me, those are the times that you should be setting the foundational stuff of what is important. And some people, it's people can have all of those things, but then there are other issues in the relationship, like morally, like things that you're like, because I know for men, for them it's respect, it's their dignity, how it is that when I'm with you, how do you make me feel, how does the world see me as a man? Like respect for them is major. I know they will cut off something for it doesn't matter how beautiful or how ambitious or how all you have all the other things. Once that is not there, they're out the door.
Absolutely. I can. What are your thoughts?
Oh, deal breakers, very popular, very very important in the community. So when I think of deal breakers, I think of deal breakers as something that, you know, a bunch of things or situations or things that you view or things that happen in a relationship that just don't cut it for you, that you can't deal with. But I think deal breakers come from your value system, right? So I think of deal
Mhm.
breakers as something that comes from your sense of value, from your value system, and also knowing why we need to have deal breakers is important. Like, knowing why do I need to have deal breakers, and really knowing. I think a lot of people also have deal breakers, but they haven't really taken the time to find out why they're having deal breakers. Are you having deal breakers because it's just a little irritating for you and you can't deal with it, or are you having a deal breaker because you haven't worked on yourself in a certain area and you don't even know that you need to do the work? Maybe you are the problem and that's why you haven't deal breakers. I know I always tend to go around these things another angle, but for me those are the things I look at. But yeah, I do think it is important to have deal breakers because it's a way to protect yourself, and it's also a way to define yourself. And deal breakers are also good for you, your mind, and your deal breaker should always sort of like also come from, like I said, that value system. So basically, they're like those guiding things for your how you're moving in your purpose. And so basically, with knowing the type of deal breakers you're gonna have, you know what to accept and not what to accept. So the deal breakers that you do have will determine your compatibility or incompatibility with the partner that you're going to, because now we're specifically talking about relationships. So yeah, so deal breakers are definitely something that's important, but I think more and more it's important for us to think deep about them, go around about them, and even with the deal breakers that we have, it's important to also reflect, go back and see why we really have these deal breakers. Because every day you grow, you learn, you see things, and you can exist in a certain state at a certain point in time. But as you grow and go into different stages of your life, you can see things from a different perspective, and your deal breakers can change. So that's my um that's my thought on that for now.
All right. So it's so funny that you say that because my next line of thought was okay, let's really break it down and look at the necessity of having deal breakers. Because when we look at coming into a committed relationship, we believe, I believe over time we've established the fact that we know that going into a relationship is an act of service. You're going in there not to be entitled to make demands, but you're going in there to serve and to come into agreement with someone who also has the same mindset. So why do you think we need to have these deal breakers? I think about deal breakers just looking at it from more of a balanced perspective where someone wants to get into a marriage agreement, but they are trying to do a prenup. So, this prenup is to say, look, I'm putting a safeguard in place because I'm not all, I don't know, it's kind of makes it feel like you're not all in. But then when you look at it from even a financial standpoint, one would say that is you being responsible for your financial wellness. So, what a deal breaker. Some people might have deal breakers because of trauma that they've experienced in the past. So they come up with these deal breakers and they say, oh, I can't take this and that, but they're not very healthy. So let's look at it. What are some of the unhealthy deal breakers that we might want to highlight, and some of the reasonable, healthy deal breakers that we also want to highlight so that we create or we provide a balanced view of this discussion? Because I don't just want us to advocate or educate our community and say, okay, these are deal breakers. These are things that when you see them, it's a no, it's a no go area. Not necessarily, right? So let's start with the negative deal breakers, the ones that are not so reasonable.
So, if guess if I could go first, because we live in a social media climate,
Mm-hmm.
where there are all the things, there are all of these supposedly experts on relationship and dating coach, because let's face it, a lot of these people are not even qualified, but everybody's make their own pages now, so your pages can look as important as you want them to look because you made it yourself, not that anybody give you any qualifications. So but some of the delusion I think about relationship or men and women and the requirements is where I think that some of these deal breakers needs to be put to the side. Like I think people confuse too deal breakers with preference. So your preference is you prefer somebody that is 6 foot, whatever. That is not a deal breaker. Or you prefer that a man has a six pack. That is not a deal breaker. Um, or that you prefer that he has no children. That is not a deal breaker. Or you prefer she has no children, or you prefer that she has a hourglass figure and she look like an Instagram only fan girl. That is not a deal breaker. That's I'm just throwing out the delusional stuff out there that you hear. Or you want a, they call them high value men, which, and then they that is encompass of what a man earns to, and in my personal thoughts and opinion, an I value man has nothing to do with his income. It has to do with his character. It has to do with his moral values and the way he carries himself, who he is as a leader, not just in his community, his church, his family, all that type of things. That's what makes him I value to me, is who he is, not what he earns. Because money is an intangible thing that can come and go. You can earn money today, you can lose it all tomorrow. Yeah. So those are some of the examples from me, Dr. Ojo. When it comes to the delusional stuff that we think are deal breakers, but they're not deal breakers. To me, they're preference. Those are the things you prefer to have, but those are not what makes a person. It's not what's gonna sustain or hold the relationship together. So if you meet someone that has the criteria of the other things that's gonna sustain the relationship, someone that is of integrity. We talked about, you mentioned before, a person that is consistently showing up, a person that treats you well, a person that respects you, a person that loves, admire, and care about you. Not just your well-being, your health, your family, how you govern yourself, your affairs, but the person may not come with all of the preference of things that you would prefer to have. Then to me, those are not the things that you put at the top of the priority list awful when you're, to me, especially when, since we're talking about relationships, when you're choosing someone. So I think that's the first thing our culture and our society needs to get right, is we need to separate preferences from our deal breakers, because we have it all confused and all mixed up and all over the place. And even some of our preferences is delusional, because there's only a certain percentage. It's just like, what is it, maybe I think it's 2% is the data of men that are high earners. And then when we throw in the height thing, the average height men across the globe, and I'm talking globally here, people, worldwide, not in America, not just the continent, I'm talking about the whole entire world, is 5'9". Get it straight, people. 5'9". So the 6 footers, it's a small margin. Get it in your head, ladies. These imaginary things you're looking for, they don't exist. That's all I got for now.
It's so funny that you mentioned the 6 footers. So I used to know a lady, she's a very good friend of mine. We haven't been in contact for a long time. And she is actually, I think she's about six. She's one of the tallest women that I know. She's over 6 foot, basically. And for the longest time, she would tell me that one of the reasons that she really did not consider a lot of suitors was because of height
Mhm.
issues. And I was like, oh, well, that might be. I can understand that because you're like way up there as a female, but it's the little pocket of men that would meet up to that height standard. They're not very
Yeah,
few,
the
you
pool
know.
is, you can do your research, people. I
And
promise you, it's a small pool.
it's so interesting you say that only 2% of men are in the wealthy bracket. So
Yes.
now all the women want the wealthy man, and it's like just a small percentage. Like, oh my God, wahala for man when don't get money. But that's really interesting that you say that. I didn't know. I didn't have that data set, so it's something new that I'm learning today, which is quite interesting. you know yeah, I come from a group of women that believe that you get your bag as well, work hard and get your bag, and come into the relationship to bring value. I mean, it's not really about having a certain amount, it's having enough to take care of yourself and holding up to your responsibilities. And when you come together with a man, whatever he brings will complement what you have. But anyway, we can still go on about, we'll still talk about that. So again, what are some negative deal breakers that you have heard?
Well, with most with what you said, I'm gonna sort of like go that angle as well, but also just from some perspective. So I think with deal breakers, I think everybody's entitled. They're entitled to have whatever preferences that they want. Honestly, because we are all different human beings. People really do have those preferences. Like I don't want six. It's okay to want anything you want. There's no problem with that. You know, but I think what the challenge is which is why I said your deal breakers sort of should emanate from your value system, because what your deal breakers are would show the type of person that you are. And so on the negative side, I think or I believe that the deal breakers are a problem when they're coming from um, something like fear. You have these deal breakers because of fear. Fear to do the work, fear to do your research, fear to get these things that you don't want based on facts, not fiction.
Mhm.
Fear of like different things. And I think for the positive side is you arrive at certain deal breakers based on the facts. I mean, I've been sitting with you women here, and Stacia had mentioned the 2% about the 6 foot and everything. That's a place where a woman can go. She can have a preference because there's a reason why people like certain things. There's a reason why people like slimmer women, there's like big women. There's a reason why we're having a high percentage of women doing BBLs, right? And I'm not trying to shake the table, but it says something, right? It says something. The world wants a certain preference of something, 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 something. But I think it's up to you to go research, get and know, okay, I might want this thing, but is it based on facts? Is it realistic? Do I need to change my strategy? The reason why I'm saying this is because we do this in different aspects of our life. We do it at work, we strategize, we come together. And you need to do the same thing for yourself. So the unhealthy part is arriving at deal breakers, preferences based on fiction, based on stuff that is not realistic. That is when it is negative. But when you work with the facts, now you know that, okay, I have found this and whatever. And we have to understand, like, this thing of saying like the deal breakers is a reflection of yourself, because with what Stacy was saying, and I understand her saying the illusion, you're saying that based on the assumption that everybody wants somebody with integrity, and everybody wants it. Some people do not want that. You're saying that based on that. Some people don't want that. That's not really what some people want. Some people just
Well,
want a certain
educate
part of
me, Akan.
something.
Tell me something I don't know because
you know,
I
and
would
this thing
think,
because
Oh,
we've seen
okay,
cases, proven cases where integrity has been put in your face, and
wow.
you push it away. The man puts it away, the woman puts it away. It's the person proves it over time. The person lives it. The person, and it's so now we have to actually talk of the things like what do people want before we even talk about your deal breakers. Who are you first? Before
Hmm.
we even go there, right?
That is true. That is true. That is so
that's a
So,
true.
good
so
point.
this is
You
why it's
know,
this point
Great
where
point.
two people of value who come together
Uh
and
huh.
align their purpose together, their value systems will align. Then, in that type of arrangement, you can now have realistic, concrete, and healthy deal breakers that make sense. So that's my idea on like negative and positive deal breakers.
I can the king. You have said so well. You know, it's true, Stacy. Let me tell you, on these social streets, it's so funny because the culture in the world today is just. It's. I mean, I know we've identified the fact that things are going down, value systems, people. But
Mm-hmm.
now these days, you hear women talk about the fact that it's just like, think about it. A lot of women will concede to the fact that, oh, he's married, he has a wife. I don't mind. I can be his second family. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you know, or things like, oh, he makes his money illegitimately. It doesn't matter as long as he can buy me what I want and give me all the money I want. However he makes his money, that's his problem. A lot of people, those kinds of things, like we're talking about integrity,
Mm-hmm.
people are really down on standards and just trying to get what they
Mm-hmm.
can, however they can get it. So even looking at deal breakers, like I said, the negative ones, that would be looking at it from the perspective of who are these people. Because in order for you to have a deal breaker, that means you actually have a standard. And in order for you to have a standard, that means you're subscribing to a lifestyle of knowing who you are and being self aware and knowing that you've worked on yourself and haven't developed yourself. Although the downside of that is we have people who have deal breakers. They say, okay, for example, I was talking to someone, and this is a real life thing, and it was like she was telling me, oh, that a guy wants her number. In order to get her number, she's gonna send him her cash app first. I'm like, cash app for your number? And this is a legitimate, full grown woman,
Yeah.
you know, she has children, and, just like a single lady, just like me. And I'm like,
So you're so let me understand. So you are selling yourself first?
oh no, like it's open, like it's not even a thing of like, the way you look at it, like what? To them is like, no, that's the standard. You want my number, I'm gonna send you my cash app. Like whatever you send, and or
But
maybe
that's what I'm
like
saying. It's an exchange because
yes,
you're exchanging the
it is
number
a
for money. So
transactional thing
this
from the
is selling
beginning.
is what we're talking about here.
It's transactional from the beginning. Like it's like, oh,
Okay.
it's all about the money. You got to show me the money. I'm like, which world are we living in today? So it's no longer things that you hear or you see on social media. It's actually people that we know, that we interact with, people that we're like, oh wow, really, is this what it has come to? Where people have, come into the space of, they don't even have any blinders anymore. There's no filter, there's no standard, there's no self-esteem. And you might look at it that there's no self-esteem, but they look at it like they're actually putting a premium on themselves. So that's the thing. So when you talk to someone like that, they'll be like, no, I'm a premium chick. It's premium all the way. I'm like, that's premium. I'm like, whoa.
But that's
We
that's what we're
have
saying. That's what we're saying, that this is important. Like with that person, like we stay say, like they don't look at it like a transaction. They
no.
look at it that way. They look at
Okay.
it like this is the standard was set. But here's the funny thing about it, that the angle people don't always understand about stuff. The way a lot of people get into things, men and women, is when you start to hang around a certain behavior, you think you have a standard towards it. But naturally, the first way you start to get into that thing is you start to become insensitive towards it. It starts to feel less like a bad thing to you. And so when you're hanging around that energy, you don't
Mhm.
even when you start to indulge. And I think that's what's happened to so many people in the world. You start to
Absolutely.
indulge, and before you know it, you're doing and doing. And that is why this thing I tell people, like, it's important for you. That's why it's like the Bible says, like, if you have to cut your hand off, chase away temptation. Because
No.
once it comes around, it starts to come, and then before you know it, you start indulging in that, and then now you're living like that delusional life. You're not
Yes.
thinking. You're deriving your belief and everything from what everybody else or these people around you are doing, not from something that you've thought, not from something that's a value, not something that is based on purpose, not from something that is based on what God wants for your life, right?
Yes.
So that's how it happens, and so that's what I started learning. And I think it's getting tougher because now, like especially on social media, these things are now they're put in your face. So a lot of people are becoming more insensitive towards these things. There's people who are staying making up these things to make sure they put it out there for you to think it's real. This is how it's supposed to be, but it's not. Social media is not real. It really is not. And so we need to be guided. I think and that's my advice. We need to be guided. We need to really understand. We need to really know our whys and like why do we choose this thing? Like I go back and assess like why do I even have this deal breaker for, you know what I mean? Then I say, okay, the reason why I have this deal breaker is because if I don't do this deal breaker, it's going to destroy me. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
that thing is going to dissuade. Like if it doesn't have any economic benefit, if it doesn't add to your purpose, if it takes you off track, mom, it's no need. Like we're not doing that. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
Stacy, did you want to say something about it?
Well, I'm still, to be quite honest with both of you, I'm still in a state of shock, and I
I
do
that's
know that.
why that's why I called you, because I could tell that you're still trying to take it all in. Okay, while you're talking, no, let me give you a moment to process the information and let me get this thought
Okay.
across. So based on what Akan was saying, it was just like I was listening to Pastor Stephanie, and she was saying something about, we're learning every day, and that's why I love our community right here.
Hmm.
Like one of the things that I absolutely love about the people, and I can say that very, very full chested authentically, is the fact that the people around me are only quality people.
Hmm.
Only quality people. They're not many, but only quality people are permitted in my space. Like something happened a while in the African community, was a financial crime situation where people lost a lot of money. And because a lot of people know that I'm in the financial wellness industry, someone was like, have you, oh, Dr. O, and someone called me up and said, Dr. O, I hope you didn't do this. I was like, what are you talking about? This was after everything had collapsed and people had lost money and people were devastated. And I had never heard about it. And for some reason, the person was shocked. He was like, but that's your industry. In fact, but I'm like, the kind of people I do business with, the kind of people I surround myself with, first of all, they know better to not bring that kind of opportunity my way, which I am grateful for. And it just made me feel very, very happy about the life that I have curated for myself over the years. That there's certain things that would not even come into my ecosystem by virtue of the people that I have around me. So while people are making mistakes here and there, I am surrounded by good counsel for the most part. Another thing that I wanted to say is the fact that there's spirits behind this. So it's like the fact that now we have become, a lot of people have become subliminally just accepting of culture. You know, she said culture is an agreement that a certain group of people would have with certain things, behaviors that are introduced to them either by spirits or demons. And once they come into agreement with that, now agree with that, they will transfer that over and over. And eventually that's what we now call culture. So what we know as mainstream culture is years of agreement that people have had with this deprivation of character. People just not thinking about the right things and turning everything upside down to accepting what is wrong as right, and then putting the people who are in the right and making them look like they are the aliens. So now it's weird that we have all these things and we're accepting it. And of course, like you said, when you surround yourself with that type of energy, people that spirit is prevailing in their lives, by without whether you agree to it or not, or whether you think you're going to become susceptible to it or not, it will seep into you. So the best thing is to make sure that you're curating yourself, because some of these standards of transactional relationship, for example, I used to say this a long time ago that promiscuity was not a deal breaker for me. Right? I was like, if a man wants to mess around, that's on his tip. That's his problem. I know that I'm enough for him. But I also started to understand differently that it has to be a deal breaker. Because if you end up with a promiscuous man or a partner who's promiscuous, there are certain things that they are introducing to you without your consent that will affect your life negatively. So if I'm saying that I'm in agreement with that behavior, by proxy, I am also inviting to myself all of the demons and the spirits and the mindsets and everything that is operating in them in my space. So I now was like, oh wow, that has to be a deal breaker. I cannot be with a promiscuous person. Even though initially I used to think it's not a big deal. People are promiscuous, especially men. Because of course I grew up in Africa where my dad was a polygamist until he became a Christian, and I'm surrounded by family members and just men in society that's the way of life. And I also grew up to understand that a woman just has to hold her own and just keep herself. But while you're trying to keep yourself, but you are married to a man that is promiscuous, unfortunately for you, you are exposed spiritually and otherwise. You are fully exposed. And that exposure not just affects you, it affects your children. So while I have seen aunties and mothers and people stay in those types of relationships to their detriment, now I know better that you shouldn't stay in that relationship, because it's not just affecting you, it's affecting your children and it's affecting your entire life. So yeah, just wanted to throw that in there. So yeah, Stacy, what are your thoughts?
Well, okay. So, as Akan said, that your deal breakers also reflect your value system, because
Mm-hmm.
it tells a story. Who we are tells a story about ourselves. It tells a story about not just maybe your upbringing, your culture, and as Dr. OJ just alluded to, your environment, the circle of people that influence you, and the people that you're around that can also shape the way you think and also the decisions that you make. But at some point, do we have to take responsibility for ourselves? Absolutely. As a concept, do we not have to do our own research? Do we not have to make those hard choices about who do we want to become? How do we want to show up in the world? What do you want your story to be, and how do you want people to see you? And that's what you were just talking about, Dr. OJ, deciding for yourself that is this something that I can tolerate? Is this something that's I can digest? Is this something I can live with at the end of the day? Because you made a point about the spirits. I was recently listening to, maybe a week or so ago, to DMX ex-wife, and she was talking about when everything started to fall apart, not just in their marriage but with him. I have a lot of respect for DMX, even when he was rapping and he was alive, because I could see that this was a man that had some spirituality about him. There was a connection between him and God, that you cannot deny. But there's also, the Bible said we all have a thorn, and God, but God chases who He loves. And you can tell there was a internal battle going on, and she was able to depict it. She has a book out that she's promoting now about the moment when it changes, and it was when he had an affair with somebody else. And she said you could tell because she was Muslim. He actually brought her to Christ at 16. They said the Savior's prayer, and he introduced her to God. But she had that Muslim background, which, so she knows discipline, she knows of a higher being. But in terms of Christianity, he introduced her to Christianity. But she said she noticed when it changes, and even a pastor or prophet confirmed it's when he had that affair. She said he opened the door to something else that not just only betrayed their marriage, but it betrayed that trust between them, God and everything. And then that, I guess that woman had some type of, whenever you guys get a catch, I don't want to run on a tangent about that, but that just brought that back to my mind as you brought it up, that people don't understand, because I know that's one of my major deal breakers is infidelity. And because it's a bond and a trust between us that you have completely shattered. Can
Mm-hmm.
people recover from infidelities? Yes, I do think so, especially if it's done in a way where it's not a disrespectful manner. You're not a repeat offender. This is not something you're consistently doing and throwing in my face. You may have made one mistake. I do think there is redemption in those things though. But for me, when it comes to the continuous repeating of things, the blatant disrespect, this is a thing of a way of life for you, and I've lost count about women and even the boundaries of cross, because you hear about people in different situations where it's like people that are too, like that to me is like, I'm like, oh my god. It can be like some random person I would never ever ran into, but when you bring this to my doorstep, this is like somebody I'm gonna maybe run into, and people are looking at me like, you're crazy. Like, why are you with it? No. So yeah, Dr. OJ, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I just know that some of the things, you have to, at some point in your life, you have to stand for something. It says if you don't stand for anything, you fall for just about everything. And you have to develop some standards in your life and develop your value system and figure out who you are, because I said the choices you make and the decisions you make tells a story about who you are. It tells a story about the person that you are, and it tells people how to treat you too. So if you're a woman that says, um, I'm gonna send you my cash app before you can get my number, what you're basically saying to this man, or that you're communicating, is that I am for sale. That is what you're communicating, whether you believe it or not. That my relationship with you is strictly transactional and I am for sale. So there is a dollar amount on, kids are listening. I'm not gonna put it out there. Okay, I'm gonna move on. All right, Akan, I'm gonna let you go.
Honestly, it's just, whenever we discuss these things, we learn things and things come up. But, it just goes to show you that the society we live in is a complicated one. And, it's important to just really increase our awareness of things that are going on. For me, I just feel like if we have a better understanding of how we're navigating society, because there's just so much distraction, and there's just so much, things that are just not letting us. And the way the devil gets you is by just taking you away from yourself, not allowing you to know what you are. Because for me, this is simply something where it's taking away your power, not knowing what your worth is, and it still falls back to your worth. And can we also mention that some people also mention that they have deal breakers, but then in their action and how they live, it doesn't show that that's a deal breaker for you. So that's something else
That
that
part.
we need to talk about. But yeah, definitely, I think it's very important to have deal breakers, because like I said, they should be your guiding stone, and just things that you lines that you're not willing to cross, and it literally defines you, and just to protect you, and to make sure that you're aligned and moving in your purpose in life and with God. And so they're important, but it's important to know how you arrive at these deal breakers and why you have these deal breakers, and you know yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys. So you guys have spoken well. So when we look at this deal breaker conversation, of course, we've established the fact that we have to start the conversation from who is actually having the deal breakers. What are the deal breakers about? Some deal breakers come from trauma. Some deal breakers come from just not having the right information or the right experience, or even lack of self awareness. Just like, we set the standards of what we think marriage needs to be, but we don't even know exactly what it is that why we're getting married, why we're getting into the relationship. So let's talk about it from a perspective of, okay, what are some personal deal breakers that we can just kind of list out generally? For me, some of those are like in this season, I was telling someone, it's like, oh, are you seeing someone? He said, no, I'm not seeing someone. So for me, my deal breaker is I'm not interested in getting into a relationship for the sake of a relationship. I'm no longer interested in doing that. I have no appetite for it. I have no desire for it. So the only option is meet someone who is set in their intention of what they want, as far as wanting the same thing that I want, which is getting together in marriage and setting up a family and moving forward in that direction for the purpose that God will have us do it. Anything other than that, and someone quickly, when someone shut me, say, no, doctor, those are just that. What kind of standard is that? It doesn't happen like that anymore now. People just get together. I said, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. The only reason you think it doesn't happen like that anymore is because you are only surrounded by people who are doing it the way you think it's supposed to be done. I said it happened. I said, show me somewhere in the Bible where someone was dating and they said, this person and this person were boyfriend and girlfriend. Show me one instance in the Bible where they said two boyfriend. That term does not exist in the Bible. And like they say, when you know better, you do better. So those are some of the standards that we need to begin to set, because we accept things as the norm because somebody tells us, oh, it's no longer like that. We just randomly want to come together and say, oh, let's see where this goes. What are you saying? There's absolutely no construct to that conversation. And those are conversations that we should not even be having when it comes to having relationships. So some of those deal breakers for me has come from me becoming more aware, working on myself, developing myself, and having a deeper relationship with Christ. So now understanding, okay, what are the standards that you actually have for these things? What are the standards that you actually have for me to uphold in relationships? What are the standards that you have for me to uphold in building a family? In the reason that I want to have a husband, what are the standards? Do I really need to be thinking of a husband right now? So those are the things that are helping me set my deal breakers in this season from that knowledge. So how do you guys set your deal breakers when we talk about setting these deal breakers? Or do you just make them up based on preference, like Stacy mentioned, or based on purpose, like we all talk about?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question because I was having a conversation with our lovely, handsome co host here the other day about sometimes people allow preference to let them miss their purpose. And I know I've had a very intentional conversation with God that I what I don't want to, because somebody else asked me, have you that do you think you have probably missed your husband somewhere along the line? And I had to pause and think about it. I was like, that's a very good question. But then when I looked, I was like, but honestly, I don't have a long dating history. I don't have a lot of I mean, if you want to call it experience, whatever there. I said because I said when I started to think about a mate, what was being offered, I didn't have an appetite for. It was not what I was interested in. So I really kind of buried myself in family building myself in school, in church, volunteering, working with nonprofits, doing those type of things, the things that I love, the things that I enjoy, and the things that was of interest to me, because I didn't have an appetite for what was being offered. It was mind blowing. But anyways, so to my point, to the story that I'm trying to get to, I was having that same conversation with Akan, because then it occurred to me that I had not missed my husband, and I know I haven't missed my husband because one of the things that I know I longed for, and I feel, and I know that God knows me better than I know myself. And excuse us, community, if, as I said, when sometimes when in conversation, our personality and our lives that we live may show up in our conversation. So no offense to anyone that doesn't believe in the same way or that have the same viewpoints that it is, but I have to be authentically me, and the things that drives me, and the way I think, the way I think is that I've always asked him for someone that I can do purpose with, because I want to build something more than just exist and make money. I want to do legacy. And I've never met someone that I felt I could build legacy and do, except for one person. But there were things that didn't align with us, because I also believe it's not supposed to be hard either. It's supposed to be very easy too. It's not supposed to be something that is forced or difficult where there is no flow between the two people. So for me, I often say that my deal breakers is that one, I am not going to let preference let me miss my purpose. That's one thing. And then the other thing is the trust, the fidelity, the disrespect. Those are like major on the top of my deal breakers. Like I cannot I'm not going to tolerate the disrespect. I'm not going to tolerate the infidelity, the trust issue. Like, I am not going to be that woman that is checking your phone. I am not also going to be that woman that is calling anybody. But the moment you start to make me feel that type of insecurity and make myself worth, as me start to doubt my self worth, or to make me feel like I am something is wrong with me, it's a wrap for me. I can't thrive in any of that, because I also think all of us needs different things in order to thrive in a relationship, just like we need things to thrive in our lives. And those things has to come from like a concept, your value system, and you knowing who you are. Like one of the things that I know I need is that consistency and that communication. I need that to thrive, because I've been in a place before where I literally feel like I was starving. Like I know some people are not great at everything, we're all not going to be great at the same thing, but this person was not a communicator. So I felt like I always felt like I was starving, because I felt like there was no one feeding me, and I am trying to do everything it is to meet your needs and to feed you, but there was no one feeding me. So I felt deprived, which is to why the whole reciprocity is also now one of my deal breakers. And sometimes you have to experience things too to figure out too exactly what it is that you need. Like you know these things about yourself, but sometimes it doesn't come, the light bulb doesn't really click, or it doesn't become so much at the forefront of your mind that I need this, until you find yourself in a situation where you're like, okay, I can't do this.
Well, well,
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, I can, the king. Let's
Why are
hear
you
from
laughing, Akan? You laughing at me? You go
no,
on, laugh at me.
no, no, no. You spoke very well, honestly. No, for me, it's just my deal breakers just pretty much come based on my purpose, and it aligning with my purpose and where I'm going to, and the things that I don't stand for in my life normally. So if first of all, low interest is a no-no for me. I think a lot of people still go to that place where, oh, they're like, you need to prove yourself so the person likes you. I don't need to waste the time to try to make you to like me. If you give me low interest from the beginning, I'm out. I don't even waste time. Like I know myself that much. So low interest, deal breaker. Don't even worry about it. Being uncooperative, out. No time for that. You do not believe in God. You don't believe in the same God I believe in. No fear of God. No need. So I already know we're gonna have problems. It's like my mind
you.
because a lot of my value systems comes from there. So you don't have to go, because I told you I've had a situation where I met someone and the person was like, oh no, she doesn't believe in God, whatever. I was like, oh cool, no problem. And then they try to reverse that. I'm like, nah, we're not doing that. I respect it, you know. So those are some of the like my deal breakers that I go with, and then of course things that are ugly, as God doesn't like ugly, and just just things that I wouldn't stand for. So maybe so if you're into certain types of relationship, the whole polyamory or whatever, that doesn't work for me. And just pretty much just the value things that are value that I value. That's where I get my deal breakers. And then of course one of the big things on the list there is like a lack of honesty and a lack of transparency. Once it's not, because you can be honest, but then you can also be not saying, so you can also be holding back holding back information. So
White
and
lies.
then
Yes.
you say, oh no, it's not like I lied to you. It's just that I
But I
need
didn't just tell
to.
you.
Right. So
Yes. Oh, and I'm
honestly,
glad you said that because define
right.
that, Akan.
Yes.
People don't understand that there's a difference between honesty and transparency.
Oh
And
yeah.
I will take transparency any day over honesty, because
Honestly, yeah.
transparency means you're gonna tell me the full story. You're not gonna
Yes.
tell me half truth.
Hmm.
Yeah. Honesty and transparency is important, and I think we need to constantly still learn about what it really is to be committed to someone. You need to be your full self to that person, and if you feel like you cannot, then that is a question you have to answer yourself. And so for me, when it comes to my deal breakers, those are the angles that I see it from, being unkind or being excessively selfish. Yeah, I'm just not going to be able to work with that. So yeah, pretty much.
That's good. So this area is a very interesting area, that people, I guess, that we definitely need to talk about as well when it comes to deal breakers, sexual preferences when it comes to relationship. I feel like couples and individuals need to talk about it. One thing that it's so funny, the things that we have started accepting in our society today. Yeah, when it comes to sexual preferences, so many different things that culture is pushing us. And I'm learning that those things are not even normal. They are not the ordinate order of things that God has put us to do things like oh, there was something I heard this weekend. I just learned it for the first time. I knew it existed. I did not know it had a name in culture. It's called golden showers. Like someone wanting to be aroused by being peed on. I'm like, is that what?
Mhm.
I was like, it actually has a name. Like, this is crazy. Woo, society, I don't know, we're just going deeper and deeper. So when I heard, I was like, it has a name. And that, I found it very scary. Like, how do you want to be defecated on? And those are some of the things that we need to be able to talk about and see, like, it's not normal for someone to want to pee on you or defecate on you or do certain things that are outside the boundaries of normal enjoyment of sexual pleasures. Those are some of my non-negotiables as well, like my deal breakers. Like, if you're into some of those out of the line, out of the boundary things, that means you're being led or you're being influenced by demonic entities, because they're the ones that are pushing people to think they enjoy these things, but it's not really humanly natural. People who feel like they enjoy those things, they are possessed by demons, and those demons are expressing themselves through them, making them think that that is what they want. But anyway, that being said, I feel like it's good to mention that sexual preferences is also something that could be a deal breaker, and we should be very okay and open to talking about it when we are, coming into agreement with these relationships and understanding what our boundaries are. Because I know that a lot of couples have issues when it comes to their sexual life because certain things were not discussed. One person wanted to go to an extreme of things, and these are like church going people. It's not like they're like outside of the church, or they're like not, you know, spiritual people, but they've just allowed certain things that puts them at an extreme that the other partner is not so comfortable with, and now it becomes an issue. So yeah, we definitely need to talk about that when we start having these serious conversations with people that we intend to go the distance with.
But just to mention, Dr. OJ, we have already discussed sexual preference on another episode if you guys want to go back, and that was some of the things we talked about. Like people will say that it's too early for you to talk about certain topics during the dating process or the courting process. I don't think so. I don't agree with that. You need to talk about everything to make sure you and this person align, so you're not surprised after you've already signed on the dotted line and walked on the altar. And I know you,
Mhm.
yeah, you can file for divorce, but I mean, who wants to go through all of that,
Yeah.
and then file for divorce and spend all that kind of money on a wedding? But I'm just saying that that was one of the things we discussed earlier in our podcast for a community that want to go out and check that episode out, because I think we had already brought that up in that podcast about the golden showers and people having different sexual appetites and needs. You need to talk about these things to make sure you're on the same page, to make sure you're okay with certain things and you're not surprised later on.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. All right, y'all. So, I mean, when talking about deal breakers, I think it's important, first of all, to establish your identity, know yourself, to know yourself, to rule yourself, to guide yourself, to grow yourself. But you have to, first of all, start from knowing yourself. Self awareness is important before you set those deal breakers. And of course, as we leave you tonight, we definitely want to leave you with some parting words. For me, it will be setting deal breakers from a place of understanding. Understanding allows you to set these standards in a way that it aligns with not just who you are, it aligns with the values that you believe in, the ethics that you guide yourself with, and possibly the faith that you are tapped into, your faith system. So that understanding would allow you to know exactly what are some of the things that will contradict everything else that you have going on in your life. And that is not to say that it's giving you an excuse or a license to now create unreasonable demands of other people. And then, like Stacy said, limiting yourself because you want to have all these preferences, and then you miss God's purpose for your life in your partner. So yeah, that's all I have for tonight, guys. What are your closing thoughts on this topic?
The only thing I would add, Dr. OJ just said it, is make sure you define the difference between preference and deal breakers. They're not the same. To me, preference are things that can be compromised. There are things that you can let go because there are sometimes not the things that truly matters at the end of the day. It's not the thing that is going to guarantee or actually set you up for success in finding the right person for you or the right mate for yourself. So know the difference is, and again, guys, you can have preferences. Nobody's saying that people can't, you're not allowed to have preferences or not allowed to have desire of the things that is more appealing to you. What I'm simply saying is, don't let that be the only defining factor in you finding yourself as someone um, that is your person, that the person, so you miss your opportunity or you miss your person because you're holding on to preferences where the pool and the margin, you can look it up yourself, statistics and some of the preferences and the things that we want, is a very small pool of people that fall into some of these categories. And not even sometimes us ourselves that are asking for these things, you don't have these things that you're wanting. You don't come with all of this packaging and all of this perfectness that you're asking for. So I'm just saying, be realistic in our decision making process and the things that we are requiring of people. Make sure too that you're some of these things that you're also asking for.
Yep. Yep. So I just want to say, it's absolutely important to have deal breakers. In fact, you should have deal breakers for sure, but please understand why you have them. Understand, if they align, your purpose and what they're protecting you for. Be sure that your deal breakers are coming from a place of facts and reason, deep thought reason versus just fiction and what everybody else is saying they want to do. And also make sure that they're not coming from a place of fear or trauma or all those negative emotions that actually do emanate from fear. And always find the time to reassess as you go through the world, as you go through the ranks in life, to know whether these deal breakers still apply as you get to different places in your life, also depending on what you want and based on your purpose. So I'll leave you all with that tonight.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for another wonderful episode. Tonight we're discussing deal breakers. What are some of your deal breakers? Do you want to leave it in the comment section so we can hear from you, our community members? And what are some of the things that you used to think would be a deal breaker, but now in this season you see it a little differently? You know, we don't stay the same. We're always evolving through every season. So in one season, your deal breaker would be one thing, and in another season, it could be another thing, and that is perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's do it with understanding and the fear of God. All right, y'all. Don't forget to subscribe, turn your notifications on, join our community, join the conversation. Drop us a like on this episode if you found the value in what we talked about. And of course, help us share this community with other people so that we can keep growing together. Until next time, it's been a wonderful episode. Thank you so much. See you guys. Bye, everyone. Have a good night, good morning, good afternoon.
Bye. Have a good one.